Welcome to part 2 of the video series of how to become an RX athlete and make it to quarterfinals. If you remember in part 1, I went over this Venn diagram talking about how the foundational elements of the sport of fitness are skill, strength, and engine. We analyzed and had viewers analyze their own performances and say what their strengths and weaknesses were, looking at open workouts from this past year, and also looking at individual movements. Today, we are focusing specifically on strength and engine, and I'm going to teach you a couple core components of each facet of those things that we need for strength and endurance. So, when it comes to strength, when it comes to endurance, I've broken it down into 3 main things that you need to be able to do within each realm. We're going to start with engine, and then we're going to move on to my favorite, which is strength. So, I've written these little cheat sheets. So we have COP, COP. When it comes to engine, the first thing that we need to develop is capacity. So when it comes to capacity, that's simply having the ability to do the engine. So for instance, the other day in WOD prep training, we had an EMOM, and one of the rounds was a 24-calorie row in a minute. And combined with the other movements, we had some burpees in there and things like that, I physically did not have the capacity to hit 24 calories each minute. I was rowing as hard as I possibly could, putting all of my energy into it, and I still was only managing to get 22, 23 calories once we got through a couple rounds. And that's because I truly did not have the capacity. I haven't been training, I haven't been developing my engine enough to truly develop a capacity to be able to do the work that's required. Another thing that has to be spoken when it comes to engine is output. So this is unique because in CrossFit style workouts, functional fitness, if you don't have a high energy output, if you can't sprint on those machines, oftentimes you will get dusted in some workouts. So we're thinking about things like assault bike sprints or row sprints. If you don't have the ability to get those RPMs really, really high and your heart rate really high, then you're probably going to lack on workouts that require high output but not necessarily a ton of endurance or capacity. And then the last thing that's extremely important when it comes to developing an engine, I'd say this is the most important one, is pacing. So when it comes to pacing, if you don't know how to adequately pace your workouts, you will crash and burn. Very commonly, you'll see people ramp up their pace far too hot and then they crash and burn in longer workouts. It doesn't matter if you're doing cardio equipment or burpees or anything like that, bar-facing burpees, burpee box jump overs, box jumps, double unders. Those things can all come into the engine category if we don't have our pacing dialed in and we don't know how to hold our 2K row pace or our 5K row pace and stay there so that it manages the rest of our workouts, we will be in trouble. Because a lot of people pace like this. They go really fast and then they burn out. But if someone can do this and stay consistent, they're going to end up with a better score oftentimes in workouts that require a lot of pacing, which are most of them. So how can we work on these 3 things, capacity, output, and pacing? Well, one of the best things that you can do is add on some accessory programming that goes into your training and it fits like a glove or like a cherry on top where you're practicing these things. You're doing longer intervals or longer time trials to help build capacity. Think going 80%, 85% for a very long time, like steady state cardio. Next, you can practice output. These are assault bike sprints, 30-second EMOMs of 10 calories on the bike or something like that. That's how we are going to build output. And then pacing, when you're doing accessory programming, it calls for something like hold a 2-minute pace for 500 meters 5 times with a 3-minute rest in between. That's a great way to practice pacing. So these are just a few examples of things you can be doing to add into your training to improve the capacity of your engine, the output of your engine, and your ability to pace your engine. Now, let's move on to strength. There's 3 main components of strength that I like to talk about. One is raw strength. So this is just exactly how it sounds. How freaking strong are you? We're looking at things like deadlift, bench press, shoulder press, front squat, back squat, things like that. Oftentimes they require very little skill to do those things, but the stronger you are, the better you are. And that is kind of the foundation for building more when it comes to strength and functional fitness. So increasing your deadlift will probably make your clean better. Increasing your strict press will probably make your jerk better. Things like that. Increasing your bench press might make muscle ups easier and burpees easier because of that pressing pattern. So all these things considered, when you increase your raw strength, you're increasing your overall strength and you're increasing your overall ability in the sport of fitness. Next, we have positioning. This could also be called, a lot of people say, mobility. So how often do you see athletes who are really freaking strong, but you tell them to overhead squat a barbell and they can't do it? Well, are they lacking that pressing strength? No. Are they lacking the squat strength? No. They're lacking positional strength. They can't get into the proper position to actually move where they need to move. So this is why when it comes to developing strength, it's very important that we need to work on our positioning. That means adding in extra mobility work, adding in time under tension in awkward positions so that we get better at doing overhead squats and actually applying the raw strength to the movements we're trying to do. And then lastly, when it comes to strength, we have skill. I know skill is another component, and we're going to talk about that in the next video, but when you have skilled movements like the snatch, clean, jerk, these are high skill lifts that require a lot of skill, a lot of coordination, but it's the application of your raw strength with proper positioning and the skill and coordination to be able to move the barbell and move your body into the positions you want quickly. So when it comes to developing strength, these are the things we need to work on. You should be following accessory programming. A lot of gyms hopefully are helping you get stronger as well. You should be doing things that increase your raw strength in the bench, the deadlift, the press. You should be doing things consistently that improve your positioning and get you strong at the end ranges of motion in these awkward overhead squatty positions and split jerks and crazy things like that, lunges. It's very important to work on that positional strength. And then lastly, skill. Skill with the barbell. Can you drop under a snatch really quickly? Do you know exactly where to grab the bar with your hook grip so that the barbell hits perfectly in your hip pocket so you can execute the most beautiful snatch or clean? These high skill movements that take people years and years, they dedicate their entire lives to learning these skills, will help you increase your overall strength when it comes to functional fitness and doing those Olympic style lifts. So with that, I hope this video has given you a couple ideas that you can start to mull over as you think about this next year's training. What are things you can do? As you look at this board, I want you in the comments to let me know what's one thing that you can be practicing more of on the engine side. What is it? Is it capacity, output, pacing? How are you going to practice it? I've given you a couple ideas. And then also, what's one thing that you really need to work on the strength side of things? Do you need to just increase your raw strength? Do you need better positioning and mobility? Or do you just simply need more time to practice the skill of moving the barbell? Let me know in the comments below one thing you're going to work on the engine side, one thing you're going to work on the strength side, and maybe a couple notes of how you plan to do it. How are you going to add it into your training? I'll make sure to monitor the comments, answer questions, give suggestions, and really engage to help you make it to the next level and improve your strength in your engine. And with that, that has been part 2 of this video series, and you don't want to miss out on part 3, where I will be deep diving into skills and exactly how to learn them and in which order. And I'll see you in the next video. If you liked this video, then you're gonna love my next video. Click here to watch more free training from WOD Prep.